didn't have the driving force behind it, and then the next CEO came in and said, well, that's not our priority anymore. The global financial crisis, our priorities have changed, our financial situation has changed, they fired a whole lot of people. But those 4 people that are transplanted, they will be following those now. They just won't be increasing the numbers of people in the trial. So we will see over the years what the outcomes of that will be. So, as I've mentioned, there are clinical decisions to be made in a spinal cord trial, both what kind of injury, when to intervene, do you use complete versus incomplete, and I've talked about some of the risks of incomplete, but they might be, people with incomplete injury might be better, because a complete injury, when you have separation of the cord from one side to the other, largely separated, it might be very difficult to get cells in there that will allow the nervous system to bridge that gap. But that has its attendant risks. And then the next issue is, do we need animal models? I've sat on an ethics committee for animal ethics committee, and one of the members was a member of Animal Liberation. We have a community member on any animal ethics committee who is representing the interests of animals, and she said, well, we don't need animals for spinal cord research because people can volunteer for that. So there's obviously there's a wide range of views in our community about whether we should use animals, and yet most biologists would say, well, we need animals to find out about the biology. The risks, the issues are too great to go straight to humans. Next slide. Yes, okay. So then if you have animals, what's the best model? Do you go for rats, little things? Do you go for dogs? Do you go for sheep? Dogs, nobody likes to work on dogs. Sheep don't like to have spinal cord injury, they just lie down and die. Primates, well, there are lots of issues about primates. And primates don't make good, they'll pull out catheters and they're clever, and they're not interested in cooperating with you. So there are all sorts of real issues when we're thinking about spinal cord injuries. What's the best time to transplant them? What type of cell are we looking for? What we're expected to do, support, repair. Then there's the issue of good manufacturing practice. So the cell in the bottle is great. You can make a product. You can spend a lot of money to verify that product, and then you can spread the cost of that verification for that product across lots of patients. For autologous transplantation, then you've got similar kinds of verification processes for each, because now the new rules say that if you take cells out of somebody and you grow them in a lab, they become a product. They're now no longer simply like a bone marrow transplant or something. They're now a product that needs to be registered and approved. So that has real costs, which didn't apply when we did our trial. So you can see it's not just a matter of getting cells and whacking them in. This is the message I'm trying to say. It's a really hard problem that we as a community have to face all of these issues. Maybe the cost should be borne by the public health system, for example, one could argue, because they're the ones who are paying for the lifetime cost of people with injury. But there's no real mechanism for that now. Mostly the mechanism for a treatment is a commercial firm takes a risk, throws the money in and hopes that they make a profit.
Hi, I'm just wondering, with all this stuff that is happening in all the trials and all that, has there actually been any improvement in anyone who's had any of the experiments done?
There has been no, we can't say that there's been any improvement. The question is whether or not has there been any improvement, but all of the trials are still at that first safety level. So there will be time, it's going to take time before we get past that safety issue, before people are structuring a trial to really test to see whether there's improvement.
Now, why did you choose that one there? Asking others to use it as an example, is that a bit disappointing? And you're saying there's no trial for outcome Choose that one.
Oh, why did I choose to illustrate that Geron? Yeah, that's a good point. Because that was the first trial of embryonic stem cells specifically, and it's the first one. Well, it's the first stem cell trial. We didn't put stem cells in, but that was the first stem cell transplantation into the spinal cord. So it was kind of an illustration. And I also put it in because I wanted to draw out this point about the commercial approach of cell in a bottle versus another approach would be taking cells from individuals, and those issues that are important to think about.
If you do research, I mean, you have on the internet, there are many American companies that say they do have done thousands of trials and they've been successful. So are they just lying? Or?
Yes. So there are a lot of people out there who will put in stem cells, and I say in inverted commas stem cells. There usually will be bone marrow derived cells. They usually, and in order to be, they'll charge you for it. So and they're not designed like a clinical trial in this kind of way I was saying that they should be randomised or not randomised, controlled or uncontrolled. They're not done in a formal clinical trial where they're testing people beforehand, giving them treatment and testing them at various times afterwards. They're a place where somebody goes and says, you pay me a certain amount of money and I'll put in stem cells. So they're usually bone marrow cells. So they'll take a bone marrow from you, and they'll usually put in the white blood cell component of those, among which some may be stem cells. So a fetal stem cell is a stem cell that's come from a fetus. Usually there is that one trial that's funded from the US and is being done in Switzerland. It's a real trial where they're taking neural stem cells from the fetus and then injecting them into the spinal cord. But most of the ones that are out there where you could just rock up and have a treatment will be bone marrow derived cells, among which there may be some stem cells. And is there animal evidence that it works? No, there's not. There's bone marrow cells put into the spinal cord have a small effect in animals only, and there's not a lot of research there to show the biological efficacy of it. But they're chosen because they're easy to get relatively. It's a bit painful, but you can get a bone marrow aspirate, pull out the cells, spin it all down and get the white blood cells out of there, some of which will be stem cells, and they'll say they're stem cells. So it's half-truths. And the thing is, as a scientist, I'd love to know if it works, but mostly all the clinics that are doing it are just doing it, and they're not doing a rigorous test beforehand, a test afterwards, to know if there's any effect. And I think that's what's frustrating for scientists, is that if all of these people are undergoing these activities, and they're usually legal because they're under they're a treatment where the cells are being minimally, the tissue is being minimally affected before it goes back in. So it's autologous, comes from the same person. So it's just like any contract, between you and a doctor. They'll treat them and you